Welcome to another episode of One on One with Mitch Lafon. Joining me this week, not one, but two great Canadian vocalists. Up first, better known perhaps for his work in Danger Danger, it is Paul Laine. He is back with Rob Marcello and, of course, Bruno Ravel in a new band called The Defiants. The album is called The Defiants, and it is fantastic. Probably going to be in my top 5 best albums of 2016. On the other end, we've got Brian Vollmer of Helix, 40 years as frontman of one of Canada's premier rock bands. And we check in to find out what's going on in Planet Helix and their new album, tour, Vince Neil, and all that wonderful stuff. But up first, here he is, the one, the only, Paul Laine. We are speaking with singer Paul Laine. The new project is The Defiants on Frontier Records. And Paul, I've had a chance to hear the album, and it is absolutely fantastic. It's one of those where you are going to drive out to a beach and have the top down and the sun, blazing down on your forehead, and you're just going to be listening to these cool tunes.
Yeah, hey man, thanks. That's a pretty good compliment. I'll take it.
Yeah. So I guess let's just start there. You've done the Danger Danger stuff. You're doing DarkHorse. You've produced or done stuff with the band Radio Sun out in Australia.
Yeah.
How does all this work and all this? Where do you find time to put together the Defiants?
Well, I find the time because I have no life. So I've traded in work, for my work is my life. The Defiants. That poses a really good question because when it came up last May, when we were approached by Frontiers, I thought, how am I going to do this? Because I was working with DarkHorse full time and I was just ready to pull the plug on, or turn the switch on the new DarkHorse record to start cutting it. And I was still playing DarkHorse shows at that time. And, it was tough for me, not tough in the sense to say that I would do it, but again, the time constraints. So then Bruno and I just kind of had a discussion about it. And, the reason that I wanted to do it was because I thought, purely sentimental reasons. Like, well, Bruno and I never really did much writing together. Like when I was in Danger Danger, I wrote my songs for the record and Steve and Bruno wrote their songs for the record. And that's how we worked. Because when I joined them, they were a songwriting partnership, and I was I was a solo artist guy, and it just sort of worked better that way. So I said to myself, this chance is probably not going to come up again, and so for sentimental reasons, I said yes, that I would do it. But in the beginning, Bruno and I kind of agreed, hey, let's not take any money from the record label. Like, let's just see how this goes, and take no advance money. Sure, we'll sign the contract, but don't put the money, they can put the money in escrow, whatever. Because if we don't like it and we can't write together, like I didn't know, I had no clue. But it was very clear in the first 2 weeks that, I think we wrote like 5 songs in the first 2 weeks. And that summer, basically June and July, we wrote 33 songs.
Wow. So, they're only putting out like 12. So what are you going to do with the other 21?
Well, they're sitting there, and the songs are. We had a hard time picking what we were supposed to do. We just kind of went, we wanted the record to have a certain vibe, and we sort of just felt that the songs that we chose had that particular vibe that would be cohesive and make sense on a record. So yeah, the other songs are just sitting around there, and will there be a Defiance 2? There probably will be, unless it sells 5 copies, in which case Frontiers will be like, yeah, you guys are great, but nobody loves you. So
yeah, but of course, with my support and help, you'll sell thousands and thousands and thousands, right? That's the way it works. But of course, for people who don't know exactly who right? That's how it works.
I know. Hey, listen, Mitch, I already sent a check with it. It's empty. It's just got your name on it, dude.
Yeah, I'll just fill in the amount later. But for people that aren't clear on who the Defiants exactly are, it's, of course, Paul Laine, Bruno Ravel, and Rob Marcello. Marcello, yep. Right, of course.
Rob Marcello.
So since you're talking about the second one, a potential second one. Was that the plan all along, though, to make this a band? And if it succeeds, let's go do some shows. Let's think about a second one. Or was it really just sort of a one-off and, it'll be what it'll be, and let me go back to DarkHorse and let me go back to producing Radio Sun? And how did you approach it initially?
Oh, we just went, could we? We didn't have any of those thoughts, actually. To be quite honest, we just went, let's write a record together and see, if we like the songs. Because Bruno's a songwriter. I come from the songwriting thing first, right? So kind of the artistic side of, I'm always pushing myself. And I thought with this record, there'd just be a chance. I didn't see past the end of the album. And that's very honest. And I don't think Bruno did either. And honestly, when you finish an album, like we did with this, because let's face it, Bruno's still in Danger Danger. Danger Danger's going strong, right? They still play a bunch of shows. I don't think they're making any more records. But, there's plenty of acts out there like, look at Trooper and Loverboy and all these bands that don't make very many records anymore, if at all, and they're still touring. I think Danger Danger is kind of going that direction. I know, Steve West is more just wanting to play shows. So, he's got that, sorry for the long-winded explanation here, but no, he's got that whole thing going on, and I don't think that he would ever, abandon Danger Danger, and that's kind of his legacy thing. But what is exciting is that we have this thing. When the record was finished, we both felt it was, we wrote it for us first. We got to like it, right, when it's done. So when we were done, we're like, maybe this is a pretty good record. We feel good about it. No idea what anyone would say about it when we put it out there. You just kind of push it out there and you win, right? It's like, we like it, but
let's hope,
you're probably going to just get crapped on by everybody, but we don't care because we like it. So that's how it started, or how the record getting released and going out there and people, starting to hear it, at least in the industry. And the crazy thing has been the response of people wanting us to play shows. So we didn't really see that coming. We kind of hoped, because in my years in Danger Danger, it was a great band to be in. Like, live, the band is fantastic. And so the chance to go play shows with Bruno and Rob, listen to Rob's guitar playing. That guy is,
it's dynamite,
insanely good.
So,
right? So who wouldn't want to be in that band with that guy and those guys?
And of course, with the lineup as it is, people are going to say, well, it's very close to the Dawn lineup of Danger Danger and stuff like that. So there's going to be the comparisons. But so let's talk a little bit about that band. I know that the band had recorded the album Cockroach before Dawn. Were your vocals also on the version before Dawn, or did you come in and say, well, we got to scrap this one and let's do Dawn, and then you put your vocals to Cockroach later, or just sort of...
Oh, God, I'll tell you. You don't know this story, so I'll tell it right now.
Right.
And I'll try and make this...
Because I know about the lawsuit, and I know they did it with Ted, and then there was a lawsuit, and then your voice ended up on it, but...
Right, so... Cockroach was the very first thing that I did. I flew in to meet the guys. First of all, we had known each other through Erwin Musper, who was the guy who produced, the Monkey Business record, right? What's it called? Screw It? Sorry, I don't know my Danger Danger history, but yeah. So Erwin had been the engineer on Stick It in Your Ear, and my first solo record, and that is how Bruno and Steve heard about me, because Bruce Fairbairn, as you know, the Bon Jovi producer, produced my first album, and because they wanted to get Bruce Fairbairn to produce their second record, they couldn't, and my engineer came along and said, hey, I can get you that same sound as I got on Paul Laine's record, and so that's how I met them. So we were friendly. It wasn't like we didn't know each other before I was asked. We just knew each other over the phone. They'd call me periodically during that whole Screw It tour, and we sort of became friends that way. And then one day I get a phone call, and they said, Ted is gone, and we have permission from Sony to take you on. And are you in? And at the time, I was in the middle of a lawsuit with the whole Bruce Allen thing, and I said yes. So I flew to New York, had a quick meeting.
Hold on here. I got to stop you a second, because Bruce Allen, of course, for those who don't know, but in Canada, managed Bryan Adams, big Canadian. What was that thing? Was he suing you over your solo album or your solo career?
Yeah, it was over my I was signed with Bruce, and there was a certain amount of money allocated to his company from Elektra.
Gotcha.
And Little Mountain Studios, unbeknownst to me, that there was a bill on my record that wasn't completely paid off. I think there was about $50,000 owing on a record that was cost about $250,000. You know what record budgets were like back then.
Yeah, I mean back then you were getting $200,000, $1 million, and this and that. Now
right.
How much did you get on the Defiants? Like $3-4?
Yeah, you got it, man.
Yeah.
If I told you what the Defiance cost to make, you'd cry.
I know. Yeah, I know. But of course, now we don't do studios and stuff anymore. Now it's they email it to you, and you throw it into your Pro Tools, and then you email it back. So
that's it.
Has to,
I own a nice studio. Bruno owns a nice studio, and that's most musicians who produce also and write own their own studios. And if we've all been lucky to work with. Let's face it, we've all been lucky to work with some of the best producers in the world, Bruno and myself, and for that reason, we can go out and put out good sounding records because we know what we're doing. Right.
And okay, so I've interrupted your storytelling, so let me just continue on this interruption then.
Sure.
You have the solo career, and you have this thing going on with Bruce, and Danger Danger came at the end of the hair metal era. Or let's call it the melodic rock era to not be disparaging. And
right.
Nirvana had started going, and Metallica with the Black Album was going bigger and bigger. Why did you say, okay, let me join this melodic rock band? Why not just say, boy, that scene's dying? And it was. I mean, we're not insulting anybody. It was dying at the time.
No, not at all. But Mitch, you have to understand is that right on that time,
right,
when I was asked, Nirvana hadn't really taken off yet. And so this is like the end of 92 that I get this phone call. So
okay.
I saw things changing, but I didn't see it changing to what it was. And here's this band that's still quite successful at the time, who has real budgets, and I'm getting offered real money to join. And I'm going, okay, it was completely different 1 year later,
right.
Completely different.
Right. Okay.
And so it was really just, I've always arrived 5 minutes too late, man. That's, someone once said that to me, and I'm like, that is so damn true.
So let me rephrase this then. As a guy who's trying to make it as a solo artist and writing his own music and having his own vision, why would you want to hitch your trailer to somebody else's vision? And of course, you said, Bruno and Steve are a writing team. You're no longer having your voice. Why not just say, hey, I love you guys, but I'm going to stay solo? Is it just down to money? Like they had a budget, like you said, and let's go where the money...
No, it wasn't just down to money. It was down. Yeah, I'll explain it. And this is quite simple. First of all, please remember, I was signed with Bruce Allen. Now I'm in Canada. I'm in a lawsuit with God, basically. And, I can be crushed, which I saw coming.
Yes, correct.
None of this was my fault. It was just unpaid by his company, and he wasn't going to pay it. And that's just where it sat. And
that's the way it is.
Right. And I felt I took offense to it. And back in the day, I don't think I should have made that decision to fire Bruce Allen, but I was a kid. I had no one in my corner to tell me, hey, maybe you should, not let your ego get involved with this and maybe just wait out and let these two people fight it out. And at the end, Bruce will still be managing you and maybe this will get worked out. But at the time I just felt very embarrassed, not for me, but that, at the time I was associated with someone that I felt at that time was being dishonest. So, so it's getting back to
right.
Danger Danger. it was because Erwin Musper had sent me some of the songs, right? And he said, I know some of the things that they do are, in their past is like this, but they sent me the Cockroach album, which I thought sounded amazing.
I agree.
And like this, right? So I just thought the songwriting's so good. So I went, this could actually be cool. And maybe while all of this disaster is going on around me, I can just leave the country and get back to writing, because everything got put on hold for me. And I knew, I had fired Bruce, so what's going to happen? So it just sort of seemed to me to be like fate. Like this fell into my lap. Maybe I should not try and control everything so much. And maybe it is time that I get into bed with other people and do some co-writing. After I heard the Cockroach record, I went, man, I could do some serious work with these guys. So
yeah, that album was brilliant. And what's funny about that album, sorry to cut you off again, but when it came out in 2001, they did both versions, yours and Ted's.
Right.
And it really is sort of a flip of a coin, because there are some days where it's your version and only your version I want to hear, and there are other days it's only, like, the music is so good.
That.
Yeah. That either vocalist the songs were so good that they worked for both voices, and that's rare,
Yes. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like that was the number one decision for me right then and there. I was like, I creatively can feel like I could do some next level stuff from where I was trying to go. And then, of course, so I did the Cockroach record in 3 days. I did that immediately after flying to New York. I flew back home, and then I flew to Sons of Montreal, Le Studio,
Morin Heights.
In Morin Heights, that's right. And
have you seen that studio these days, by the way?
I went online. I was heartbroken.
Someone
emailed me some pictures last year, and I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
No, it's desolate, and there's grass growing in the middle of the living room and the studio room.
Yeah,
it's an abandoned building, and to think they had police, Operation Mindcrime, but with Queensryche, you guys, Rush.
Rush.
Yeah. And now it's an abandoned building. So you fly up to Morin Heights and you do these you track in 3 days.
I sang the album in 3 days. I was sick as a dog. And then they sent it off to Sony. I mean, Sony was calling there every day going, we need to hear tracks. Like, we green lighted this. And so then, after day one, they couriered some rough mixes, and then, Sony loved it. So I was completely, that was sort of like part two of the audition, right? Because I realized if I went there and I didn't cut it, that would probably be out of the band. And if Sony didn't like it, but they loved it. And so we were getting ready for the release. And then of course, Ted took the lawsuit, and then that was it. So that was 93, I guess.
Yeah.
And so that froze it. And then for about 8 months, we didn't know what we were going to do. And I didn't know what I was going to do, because I went, okay, well, there's another lawsuit number 2. So what the hell?
You're a lawsuit guy, all of it.
Right, I'm a lawsuit guy. You got it.
What was Ted's claim, by the way? Because, Sony and record companies back then used to own masters. They used to own the records. What was his claim? What was his legal basis for stopping this project from going forward?
Well, I guess he felt that he had a claim on the band and the name, and
Gotcha. Okay.
I guess he felt like he was fired unfairly. I think a family member or Ted's father or somebody was, I may be getting this wrong, but I think was a lawyer. So Ted really didn't have to deal with the legal fees too much.
Gotcha.
And I know at the very end, Danger Danger won the lawsuit, and basically what it came down to was, Ted agreed not to appeal, and I think Ted got handed an order to pay the band's legal fees because he lost a lawsuit. But Ted said, "Okay, well, I'm not going to pay the legal fees. Essentially, I'll just
sign off on the album." Gotcha.
Right. You got it. And then, so, that was that. I know there's a lot of bad blood. I mean, this is all much better talked about, with Bruno and Steve, obviously.
Of course.
Because, I'm definitely the outside guy. But from my outside vision. That's
right.
kind of what perspective. Thank you. That's what I saw going on. So
let's get back to the positive. So the album's sort of in escrow. It's in this never land state, and the band says, well, okay, let's go back.
We were going to break up. We were just kind of thought we're either going to break up or we're going to move on.
Right.
So what had happened is, now I had already, I'd kind of already shifted my writing, and I was moving on to other things. After the lawsuit happened, I really just went, Danger Danger's over. Like, that's gone. It doesn't even exist to me. And that's kind of my attitude with a lot of things in my life. So, just break the strings and move forward, which is what I started doing. So I started writing different stuff. The whole Seattle scene was happening, and for sure it influenced me. It influenced me more with there's a band that was coming to Vancouver a lot called Alice in Chains, and playing at the Town Pump. And they were an awesome band. And I never considered them like part of the grunge movement, but they were. Right. They were hauled in with that. So I began to get very influenced by them and Stone Temple Pilots, kind of the more melodic side of that genre of music, from my perspective. And I started writing that stuff. And then one day, Steve and Bruno called me and they said, should we continue on? And I'm like, well, I want to change. I'm completely changed of what I'm doing. And they agreed to fly to Canada and start writing with me. So they did. They came and they stayed here for a couple months at my house, my studio, and that's when we started writing Dawn. And we weren't going to call the band Danger Danger. We were just going to go like, fuck Danger Danger. Let's just do something completely different. So I was very excited by this, and I felt like, from the changing the music styles point of view, I'm a Pacific Northwest guy. Maybe people won't shit all over that. No one knows who I am anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? Like I'm basically nobody at this point. And
do you think not changing the name hurt the album?
Oh yeah. During the whole time of doing that record, I was led to believe that we were going to come out under a different name, and we kept, coming up with different names. And 2 weeks before we put the record out, I know Steve West freaked out, and it's like, we won't sell anything if we don't put it under Danger Danger. We really need to put it out as Danger. So it just got put out as Danger Danger. And, I got 1/3 vote, right? So
right.
I'm the new guy. So then I always felt like that was a mistake. But, again, they had a much larger career than me, and I'm nobody. And what am I going to do? So that record came out, and of course, a lot of fans, didn't like it because it wasn't
right.
It wasn't Danger Danger.
And of course, there was Warrant with Ultraphobic, and there was a bunch of bands. Skid Row had changed their sound. Like, everybody was sort of changing their sound, and I think fans were, including myself, we were just sort of like, oh, what is this? What is Native Tongue by Poison? What is
right? Sure,
what is Dawn?
sure.
And
I get it.
Right, and so there was a lot of different bands or different sounds coming out from our favorite bands, and just like, oh, what the hell's going on here? Like, what is this stuff?
So then, the question always comes up about that, in the sense of, you just have to apply it to your own job. What if one day you woke up and no one wanted your skills anymore? So you got one or two choices, right? You adapt or you die.
Pretty much.
Right? Or you find a new job, which lots of people left the music industry because they just went, I can't do this.
And it might have actually have been a good idea to change, because there was a new lead singer. The band's, Andy Timmons wasn't there. There was a different configuration. But who knows, right? It's one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Sure.
If you didn't have,
and I don't regret any of it, man. It's just one of those things in life. Like, I'm still here. I'm still in the business. I'm still writing records, and people are still paying me to do it, and I can't believe it.
So then,
right?
Yeah. So after that, and it didn't go as planned. It wasn't a huge success. There was of course a fan base for it. Why did you not sit around and go, okay, well, we tried this configuration. It doesn't work. Let's go our separate ways. I go back to my solo careers. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Bruno. Off you go. But you got back to the studio and put out, what was it one called? For the Hard Way.
Okay, so let me explain something to you very quickly.
Right.
Every single record that I did with Danger Danger was my last record.
Gotcha.
So every time we did, after Dawn, and we did a tour, and when I went, okay, well, this is not, I don't, Danger Danger is Danger Danger, and I don't see us really moving forward. So then what I would do is I would go and I would start on my next solo record. Every time I was done, I was like, okay, I'm writing all these songs. So that's why those records sound differently, because I had moved into this whole kind of guitar pop thing. I discovered this band. I discovered, a couple bands. One of them was Size 14, and I love them. And I know that's kind of a weird band to like. But I was always like guitar synthy guy, and I started writing these songs. So then Danger Danger would call me up, and I'd be almost done a record, and they'd be like, "Hey, we got a record deal from MTM. Are you in?" And I'm like, dudes, I'm doing something completely different. I've like written $6 Million Man and Jaded and all these kind of pop guitar tunes, and they're like, they'll take them. Okay, so then I would give them my songs, and they would come with their songs, and then we put out this record. I go, okay, well, I'm only giving them 3 of my tunes, and then I'm going to continue on and do my solo thing.
Right.
So I'll put this record out. It won't do anything with Danger Danger, and then I'll go back to finishing my album. But then we would get a tour, and then, okay, now I'm on the road, and, so that gets put off, and then you come off the road and you go, okay, I'm going to go finish this record. And then another record deal came in, and they're like, well, we need your 3 songs. I'm like, oh, fuck. Fine. I would give them 3 more songs.
That's funny.
And that became Gildersleeves, and then that was it. And that's also why I left. We did in 2004, I finally got offered a solo deal, and that's why I did the Shoegazer album.
Right.
And so I left Danger Danger. I went, okay, finally, I can now go back to doing, without commitments. And you have to remember too that you build up friendships in the band. Like you end up I was with the band for 12 years, and I got very close with Steve and Bruno. And so when the record deals would come up, the decision wasn't necessarily based, and this is where the money thing came in. It wasn't always based on something artistic. It was based on, hey, my pals get to make some more money. They need this too.
Right.
They need this to keep going. If I say no, then these guys don't get a paycheck.
So almost a guilt of having to do with them.
Sure. And
okay.
I'm sure if you talk to some other bands about this, they would give you the same scenario if you asked them.
Oh, I absolutely. I've had other artists say to me, listen, in fact, who was telling it to me recently? It might have actually been Andy Timmons who was talking about going back for Danger Danger shows recently and saying, those guys need a paycheck. But anyway, but it is a conversation that comes up. So Gildersleeves is the last one. Then, of course, there was the live album that came out after everything was said and done.
Yes.
How do you look back on the Danger Danger days? Because what I find remarkable in all of that is you're telling me I'm quitting after every album, and the business was in the shitter, for the lack of a better word, and yet record companies kept coming back to you and saying, how about one more? And you go,
well, I think because the songs were good.
Right.
I think it's because Danger Danger was that one band where they didn't put out shit.
Agreed.
The songs were good, and there was always like some fan at some, smaller independent label. It's like, I really like these guys, and I want to see what they would do for us. And MTM was that for that band for sure. Magnus Soderqvist in Sweden was the reason that Danger Danger stayed afloat, and he was also the guy that gave me my own deal for to do the shoegaze, to do the solo thing, and he always appealed to all of us as writers. He's like, I love your songwriting. And he always used to take me aside and said, I would love to see what you could do on your own. So if there's ever a time when you're ready, let me know. I would be happy to do a record with you.
And of course, that came out. Now, where are you in terms, because you've got DarkHorse, which is, I guess, a country band. Is that...
It's like country rock. I don't know how to describe it, like southern rock kind of thing.
Right. And well, let me ask you about that vocally. Do you have to sort of sing or approach the songs differently vocally? Because, glam metal or melodic rock and hard rock and, thrash metal, it's all a different approach. Do you approach the country stuff differently, or is it just, hey, this is Paul's voice and it's just the twang behind me that's different?
Yeah, it's more of the latter of what you said. I would say from a writing perspective, it's more, the singing doesn't really change, but the writing perspective part is that I find that I'm more story-based with country music or southern rock or whatever the heck you want to call it. I mean, it's really hard for me to define it because everyone else defines it for me. So I just say, and I'm not trying to like cop out. I'm just saying I am so sick and tired of trying to define it for people. Yeah, hey, there's steel guitar on it, and there's mandolin, right, but there's also giant drums recorded at, Fairburns Armory Studios, and we got guys from Keith Urban on the record, and we got rock guys on the record, and it's just a mishmash of whatever's in my head. Yeah, I don't really, and again, not a cop out. This is how I work, for rightly or wrongly. I don't try, I just do. I don't try to write something, I just write something. So, hence when we did the Defiants, I'm like, God, I don't know if I can write that kind of record. I haven't written any rock stuff, like real, full-on rock stuff in over a decade.
Right.
Now, when I listen to DarkHorse, I still feel like it's kind of rock, it's kind of country, it's kind of this, it's kind of that. But the Defiants, I'm like, okay, I just got to see where I go with it. Hence, why not taking any money? We took no money until we handed the album in. So we worked for 7 months. We worked for 7 months going, hey, if you don't like it, fuck it. Don't give us the money.
Is that sort of a psychological thing to sort of take the pressure off? Because I know, for example, when I write stuff, or I do interviews, if I have a paycheck ahead of it, I go, oh my God, I got to get the perfect question and the perfect this, and it's got to be, right. And when I do it and then submit it, and then it gets picked up, I go, oh, okay, well, I did it my way, and look at me, I'm so happy. Was that sort of what you're doing too?
Oh, totally, man, totally. I think, look, we all know art and commerce have to work together in order to just create any sort of continuity, right? One can't exist without the other for any length of time. But if you can control how you do what it is that you do, I have never had anyone look over my shoulder. And I can't. I'm too old now to let anyone tell me what to do. And I just don't work that way. I just can't. I can't do it. I can't do it.
So, and I'll circle back to the beginning. When the album is going to be successful, because it's a great album, so I don't see how it can't be, would you take offers to go on the road?
Would I? Oh, 100%.
Okay.
100%. No problem. I mean, we're already, obviously we're doing Frontiers, and then, we've been offered a couple other shows, and I'm still balancing. I still get offers to go out as, solo, and do stuff from Danger Danger and now the Defiants. So I'm going, like, right after Italy, I fly to Australia, and I'm doing shows just as Paul Laine, with a backup band there, playing Defiants, playing Danger Danger stuff, probably a little bit of DarkHorse and my early solo stuff. And I just got offered Hard Rock Hell in Wales last night, and I agreed to it this morning. So I'm doing that show with Anita Fords and Michael Monroe, and so, I'm just going to keep working and keep playing the songs. Like, I don't feel anything except pride, Someone asks me and they want to hear those songs at this stage in life.
Let's do it.
It's right. It's wonderful, man. It's wonderful. I used to sort of look down on it and go, well, I'm just doing this right now. And then you step off the plane and you have that epiphany when you get out on stage and people are like, they're so genuinely happy that you're playing that music. You forget sometimes when you're a writer and an artist what your music means to other people because it only ever meant something to you. And then right? So
yeah,
anyway,
no, but that's true. And the whole time I keep thinking, I'm involved in a bar in Ottawa and Toronto. If he wants to play, I'll have to make him an offer. so hopefully we'll get you out here, because I think fans would get a kick of it, especially if we can get Bruno and Rob to come out. That would be great. We said we'd do 20 minutes. We're way past that. So let me finish on this. What was it like, sort of reigniting the working relationship with Bruno? I mean, I'm sure you've emailed him and you've talked to him and stuff, but professionally writing a record with him and recording a record and putting some music out with Bruno, and I'm assuming the last time was, I mean, if you include that live album, I guess 2005, but before that, 2001. Well, the Cockroach, it doesn't really count.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been 16 years. So I guess what was it? Gildersleeves was really the last one that was recorded in sequentially. So that was 16 years ago. So how was it getting in there with him?
Well, it's weird because Bruno and I never wrote together besides Dawn, and that was painful. So that's why I was very scared to do this. But him and I have been friends. We call each other twice a week ever since I left the band, like pretty much without fail. We call each other because we're pals, right? So what did it feel like? It felt like high fives every week. That's what it felt like. It felt like we were both amazed how he could drop the ball and I could pick it up, and vice versa. It's just there was no fighting, there was no arguing. It was flawless. Bruno writes riffs and I write melody and lyrics, and I write riffs too, but he's like the guitar riff guy, and I'm the lyric melody guy, hooks guy. I mean, and it just was this beautiful marriage. I didn't have to fight him on anything. He didn't have to fight me on anything. So if anything, this whole experience has made our friendship, which is even cooler, that much closer.
And I guess it also writes a better ending to the story rather than just "and the band faded away" kind of thing, right? It's sort of like, hey, you know what? We got to sort of finish it on our... And I hope, by the way, it's not finishing it, but at least it's sort of circled around and like, hey, at least we're going back to making music for the right reasons, and we're not just sort of running out of gas and having the industry beat us down, and like it's a positive thing.
Well, there's only, from where we stand, and maybe I'll finish up on this. There is only making music for the right reasons. There's no bloody money in it anymore. People aren't making records for money. There's no money. It's so small. So if you're going to go down the road and make an album, you should be doing it for the heart reasons, right? I mean, I don't ever expect to really see much money from this album, and you know what? I don't give a shit. I'm so happy with it. I think we did a good job, and I always say, you don't finish an album, you abandon it. We did the best that we could, and then we walked away.
Right. So, and listen, I gotta say, and this might sound negative, but when I got the link for the preview, I just looked at it and I went, oh, okay, what's this, And I like Danger Danger, but I did, because here we are 16 years later, and you went, oh, okay, what's this going to be like? And the first song finished, and I went, oh, okay, I'm in. And then the second song, and I got all 12. I mean, I sat there, whatever it was, 45 minutes or 50 minutes, and I went through every second of every song, and I went, okay. Now we've got something. This is not just some cookie cutter throwaway, junk that they're throwing at the wall and hope it sticks. This is actually a fun album with great songwriting, great performances, great singing, great guitar playing, great drumming, the whole thing. And I go, okay. And then I had to listen to it again.
Right on. We're never going to give you any less, man.
Yeah.
But we care too much. Rightly or wrongly, we care way the fuck too much. We just do.
Sure, as more fans start hearing the clips that are up on YouTube right now that Frontiers has put up, and as people like me start talking about it, I think it's going to get an excitement, because it's really a well done, fun album. It's going back to to the first time you heard some of those great albums in the 80s, and you just go, oh, you know what, this is just too much fun to ignore. You got to get into this. So
that's a really cool perspective.
Yeah.
I wanted to write about my past. I just thought I want to do something that sounds modern and yet gives respect to the thing that I grew up on. I wanted to feel 15, man. I wanted to feel 15 writing this record, and I did.
And I got to say, that's sort of how I felt when I listened to it. Because, when I was 15 and you got that Black album or you got the new Poison,
right.
you would sit there and read the lyrics and go all the way through it and you'd go, yay, let's do that again. And I sort of felt like that when I heard this one. I went, yeah. And then, of course, I figured, okay, I got to talk to Paul. Let me send an email over to Rob and say, hey, you did a great job. Let me send an email over to Bruno and say, hey, you did a great job, which I did. And it was just nice to be excited about music again. And, yeah, you did it. So
thanks, man. That might be the nicest compliment I've ever got from someone. I'm glad it made you feel that way because that was the intention. And I guess mission accomplished.
In my case, mission accomplished. And you can bet your bottom dollar that on my Facebook, on my Twitter, on my everything, I'll be posting about it, talking about it, and I'll just be all, giddy, for the lack of a better word, for the next few months, and there you go. So, Paul, thank you.
Well, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much, Mitch.
Yeah, it's a great album, and let's maybe do another interview in a couple of months and just keep the spirit alive. And as far as playing in Ottawa and Toronto, if you ever want to, just drop me an email, and I shall make that happen for you. And hopefully,
right, and I'd love to.
Oh, and hopefully with the Defiants, I think fans would love to see your bandmates and you get up there and do these songs and maybe throw in a couple of Cockroach songs and just, shake it for the people kind of thing.
In Italy, man. That's what we're doing in Italy. We're like 3 Defiant songs, 4 or 5 Danger Danger tunes, and of course I have to play Doriana. So
yes, of course. Which was God, I was on your first solo album, and it was like number 90. Yeah. It was a top 100 hit in Canada.
That's right.
Boy,
yeah, that was it, man. That was it.
Just quickly, since you mentioned Bruce Allen, did you at any time do anything with Bryan Adams in terms of maybe write a song for him or try where you say, hey, let's get these guys together? Or did he sort of keep his stable of artists to their own little corners? And
I'll answer that question, and you're going to like it.
Okay.
First of all, I played with Bryan.
Okay.
I did one show in Canada. We did a free show at Calgary Olympic Park. That was a thrill.
Okay.
I was a huge Adams fan when I was a little kid trying to write music. I obviously knew that him and Jim Vallance were great writers. Never got to write with him. And in fact, I came on board, and if you look at the history of the time that we're talking about, when Bryan recorded Waking Up the Neighbors 3 times, and he was, I think in '89, he was working with Steve Lillywhite. He'd actually worked with, who's his original producer, Bob Clearmountain, and then went nope, and then he went to Steve Lillywhite, and then he scrapped that album, and then he scrapped his co-writing partner of all the years, Jim Vallance, when Mutt Lange came along, and Mutt Lange ended up redoing. So he recorded that album 3 times,
wow.
Which, turned himself inside out to try to get a different sound. And when Mutt Lange took him on, so there was no time. And at the time, I was really prolifically writing when I was under Bruce's office, and also I was signed to Bruce's publishing company. So, and I felt like I needed to prove myself. So I was writing, handing in, 4 or 5 songs a month, cutting them, recording them. And Bruce used to get Bryan on the phone and egg him on about me. And he used to go, and I couldn't stand it because you got to understand, Bryan was my hero. And Bruce used to do this stuff like, see, kid, listen, Laine is, he's handing in 4 or 5 songs a month. You can't even hand a record in a year. Right, like doing that kind of Bruce Allen thing. And so,
he'll be my next solo artist, Bryan. You're out.
Right, Bruce and Bryan have that relationship where they just, are completely sarcastic to each other at all times. And so I went, there goes my chance to ever write with Bryan, because Bruce is making Bryan hate my guts. And I'm pretty sure Bryan did by the time I was
Waking Up the Neighbors and stuff came out. That's funny.
Yeah.
Did Bruce also have Loverboy, or was that somebody else?
Yeah, he didn't have Loverboy in the beginning. That was Lou Blair, and then he co-managed with Lou Blair Loverboy career.
He's got all the Canadian greats. So there you go. And hey, listen, I'm looking forward to the Defiants 2. I'm looking forward to the Unplugged album. I'm looking forward to the Defiants Live in Italy. The whole thing. Let's do this. Let's do this right. We can't have you living in the other Mitch's parents' basement for too long.
Yeah, man.
So
help a guy out, Mitch.
Yeah, right. And for folks that don't know, we're talking about Mitch Joel. I don't refer to myself in the third person. I don't need people thinking I'm crazy of anything. There you go. Thank you, Paul. I've enjoyed this. We said 20 minutes. We're at 45. I think we got it all.
All right, man.
Thank you, sir.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And drop me an email or a text if you do want to come to those two cities. I will definitely make that happen.
Oh, you got it, man. Let's stay in touch anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you. Because all the Mitches are great. You know that.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
And there you have it, folks. My interview with singer Paul Laine of The Defiants. The new album is The Defiants. Melodic hard rock at its best for you right there. Let's head over to Ontario and speak with singer Brian Vollmer of Helix. New music is on the way, shows, touring, long history, all kinds of great stuff. Let's get right into this. Here is Brian Vollmer. We are speaking with Helix frontman, the one, the only, Brian Vollmer. Brian, absolutely always a pleasure to speak with you.
Great speaking with you too, Mitch. I owe so much to you, especially finding Sean Kelly for me to initially join Helix and then become my writing partner in the last couple of discs. So
yeah.
I owe you, man.
Well, I got to say, Sean Kelly, who, of course, has done stuff with Lee Aaron and all these other bands, he was just one of those guys that, when you meet a star, you feel that they're a star. I mean, when you meet a Gene Simmons or you meet a Rob Halford, you just realize that they've got something. And Sean just had that something. I knew that he was going to be. And so he's great. He's great with Helix, the stuff he's written, the stuff he's played with, just incredible talent.
Yeah, we've become really close friends, so it's been a great relationship.
Yeah, so I'm glad for that. I'm glad for Sean too. So let's start there then today, because we haven't had a catch-up interview in about probably a year, 2 years. So. In fact, probably not since Bastard of the Blues in 2014, quite frankly. Where are we in terms of a writing process? You mentioned that you had been writing with Sean. He's become a writing partner. Are you working on something now?
We're just starting to write the next album. A lot going on since the last talk. We went over to Europe, as you know, and we did 3 dates in Spain, Barcelona, Pamplona, and Madrid. And then we went back in October and we did Germany, Switzerland, back to Germany again, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. And I've become a snowbird, and the reason I'm telling you that is because while I was down in Florida for the past 3 months, I set up shop there with a computer and everything, and I've been just editing all the films I've collected over the last, basically almost 40 years, because I'm redoing the website. When we first put the Planet Helix website up, it was done in very heavy HTML language, and it's become cumbersome in today's fast-paced world where everybody wants stuff immediately, like Facebook. So we're going to change the website around and have it that I'm going to have hands-on control here. I can change anything I want within 5 minutes. But getting back to what I was talking about, we're going to be redoing the biography section, and I'm going to be putting little 5-minute film clips. I know before we started taping here, we were talking about the Vollmers, which was a reality show I was trying to put together. The problem with that show was it was 25 minutes long, and I got people commenting that they just couldn't get through the whole thing, right? And I realized after a while that the shorter clips did much better. I was getting something like 6,000 hits off little 5-minute clips because people could watch them quickly. So I thought that's what I'll do. I'll go through all my film clips over the years, and I'll just literally, I got enough to last me into the next millennium if I just post 1 or 2 of those a week. So I'm going to redo the website with that. I've been putting all my CDs up in CD Baby this week, and we're going to have digital downloads in the merch section, and as well as hard copy CDs, and so it's a huge undertaking to do all that.
Yeah, it really is. Now, when you sit down, because your first album was 1979, and musical tastes have changed over the years. So when you sit down in 2016 and say, we're going to write a new album, where do you go musically? Do you say, okay, let's go back to No Rest for the Wicked, or do you say up and above? How do you sit down and think, let's make these songs?
Well, you draw your influences from everywhere, but I thought an apt quote was from Lemmy before he died, and they asked him where he got his influences, and he said, well, really your influences are the first stuff you ever listen to. Like, you're going to listen to stuff through your whole life and career, but, the first stuff to turn you on to music is probably what you're going to draw from the most, and then it's going to be colored by the stuff, after that. So I agree with that comment. When we go in to write, there's a lot of stuff in the 80s that I used to listen to. You can hear here and there, but if there's a new song on the radio and we got an idea from it, we'll try to use it our way and incorporate it into the song. I know there was even one song, I think it was The Bitch is a Bullet off the last album, that because Sean was playing for Nelly Furtado, which is nothing like Helix, but he was doing a song in that band, and we used the idea that he took from a Nelly Furtado song. We used it in a pretty cool way in that track. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I remember talking about it and laughing at the time that, it comes from such a strange place.
Yeah, now, another thing I want to ask you about, somewhere around 2007, you and I were out for lunch in Montreal before one of your shows, and we started talking about the Twisted Sister Christmas album, and it gave birth to the heavy metal, or the heavy mental Helix Christmas album of 2008. Is that something you'd like to revisit and do a second one? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, that was a big seller for you.
It was. It went out in Walmart stores right across Canada, and I would like to redo it, maybe do a couple more songs and add it to what we've already got, and also take All I Want for Christmas Is a Leafs to Win the Cup, which I wrote with Sean. I think that's a great song, and, with so many Leaf fans in Canada, I think it's got legs, and the song will never die until they win the cup, and even if they do win the cup, it'll still go on.
Well, yeah, and of course, the chances of the Leafs winning a cup in the next 15 years is, almost impossible. So the song will have long life.
I would be begging too much there, Montreal fan.
Well, listen.
They lost again last night, 4-1.
Nobody in Canada can be overly obnoxious about their hockey team this year. Let's just put it that way. So, But see, I've always felt bad that the Christmas album didn't have that song on it, because I think that would be a real plus. Yeah, and it would be fun, and every time the Leafs lose, I could put it on and dance around it. It would be a fantastic thing to have.
Well, we could always change the lyrics, too. All I want for Christmas is the Habs to win the cup, and do a French version.
Yeah. Now, of course, if people want to hear that, it is up on YouTube, and it's been there for, I guess, 3 or 4 years, so go check that out. You were talking about all this video footage that you're going to put up on the website. How far back and how extensive is your video footage? I would assume you don't have every show on tape, because nobody does, but are there shows from 77 before the first album, and are there shows, how deep is your vault?
Well, we don't actually have a lot of shows. There's a few clips of when we used to play the clubs. A lot of them are dark because I was shooting in Super 8. They're more film clips, for instance, when we were at the practice hall, when we used to practice at our manager's mother's barn out in Baden, Ontario, and just sitting outside the clubs or talking about them, or with fans, or the one with Ian Gillan, there's lots of live footage from that. That's from 1990, though. That's a little bit later on. There's some stuff when we did the Whitesnake Quiet Riot tour in 1984. There are some live clips of Quiet Riot I know we got there, but not too many of Helix, to tell you the truth. It's more stuff off the stage where I was shooting film. But it gives you a good idea of what life was like for us back then, especially the bar scene. You know, I keep hammering away at this, but now the bar scene's pretty much dead in Canada, and I really wonder where young bands are going to learn their craft. You know, we learn how to play our instruments, how to sing, and just to mature as musicians and individuals. While we were out there on the road, we saw the country. You know, we played everywhere there was to play, and you know, you had to have a set list that went over in Flin Flon, Manitoba, just as well as it went over in Yonge Street, Toronto. So it made us a very eclectic, well-rounded band, in my opinion, that some bands don't have that nowadays.
Well, I mean, the secret is you just go on Canadian Idol or American Idol and they make you a star instantly. Isn't that how it's supposed to work?
Yeah, kind of, I guess.
Yeah. Back in 2004, you had the 30th anniversary show. It ended up being on a DVD and a CD, I believe, as well. Now you're 42 years in. What keeps you going?
Basically just loving what I do, and you know, I make a good living at it nowadays. Unlike the days in the bars where we lived off $40 to $90 a week, now we get paid pretty well when we go out and play. We just do casinos and festivals. We don't really play bars anymore. Play a lot less, but you know, when we do gigs, the nice thing about playing casinos and festivals is that you know you're going to show up and get a great sound system and light system, and the rooms are going to be nice, and it's easy peasy as compared to back in the day.
The good old days. Now, I'm actually going to come out to a show, the Mattawa Voyageur Days, which are in July. What can fans expect from a Helix show in 2016?
Well, much the same as they'd expect from the show back in 1983, and that's a very physical show. We move around a lot. We get into the music. We've always taken the attitude that, you know, if you're moving around on stage and you look like you're having a good time, that the audience will pick up on that vibe and get involved as well. Nothing I hate more than going to see a band and they're planted like trees in front of their mic stands. You know, we play all the hits from over the years, but we try to work in new material that either we're working on or from the last couple of discs, and basically just try to be entertaining. You know, we spent all those, it's 43 years now we've been on the road, so you learn how to be an entertainer, just how to work an audience, and once again, things that a lot of young bands, because they don't have the opportunity to play that much as we did all those years, they don't have, you know, they haven't developed their live persona, let's say, like we have. There is something to be said for being older. We're older, but still hard, I like to say.
Yeah, and still doing it. And now, one of the things we talked about probably like 10 years ago was your voice and staying fit. And you talk a lot about bel canto singing and teaching of that stuff. If we can, refresh me on all of that. And first of all, do you still teach? Do you still go down to the local, I guess it was the college, and teach bel canto singing?
Well, I teach right out of my house.
Okay.
And one of my goals in the next year or two is to actually set up a website where I'm you know, selling videos or downloads right off the site on what I teach, because I think I'm one of the last people in the world to teach it. Bel canto is a phrase that a lot of voice teachers use, but very few that I've talked to actually know what the hell they're talking about. And I was taught by the best, Edward Johnson. He taught myself, Andy Kern, Coney Hatch, Gilmore of Triumph, Beverly D'Angelo, just all sorts of people in the music industry. And it's the old Italian technique. It's the only way to sing without having tension on your throat. The biggest problem with singers that limits them and destroys voices is the fact that they sing with tension. They're singing incorrectly, and you can tell when they sing because you can see the muscles straining around their thyroid or Adam's apple. Basically, is where your vocal cords are in your neck. And that's where they develop nodes. Nodes is caused by tension. Your vocal cords literally striking together so hard that they swell up, and eventually you develop nodes or polyps, which is like a callus. And, all sorts of singers have had them, Lenny Kravitz, Roger Daltrey, Billy Joel, you name it.
And so how is your voice physically then? Because you've been doing this for... correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't do it from the beginning, right? You started learning this somewhere in the 80s after you had some kind of vocal issues.
Well, actually, I learned it quite early in my career because we started in 1974. By 1976, I had nodes or polyps on my vocal cords, and I was told I would never sing again in 1976. And here I am in 2016, and, my voice is really better than it's ever been. I never get sore throats anymore, and I never worry about losing my voice. But it's a tribute to the technique. But it's essentially singing is a combination of science and art. The science part of singing is the physical things you have to do to create your voice. The art part of it is like the timing, the interpretation of the lyrics, the emotion, things like that. So when I'm teaching, basically I'm teaching the science of singing. I'm teaching exercises based around vowels and consonants, which are exactly like words and songs. All words and songs are vowels and consonants. So you learn the technique to the exercises, and then once you've mastered the science, keeping your throat up, aiming the voice, the inhalation, using your diaphragm to hold the breath, things like that, then at that point, then you go and apply them to words and songs. But it's a long process. It's not something you learn overnight.
So as far back as 1976, so 40 years ago, your voice was sort of so screwed up that a doctor said you're never going to sing again. And then just by a small adjustment in the technique, well, maybe not a small adjustment, but by just adjusting the technique, here you are all these years later and perfectly healthy.
Perfectly healthy, and
wow.
I live a healthy lifestyle nowadays. I haven't drank in years. I don't smoke dope. You know what I mean? So, I'm a clean living type of guy. I go to the gym every day. I keep myself, my weight fairly under control. I'm a couple pounds over right now, but I watch my health, and I want to be doing this when I'm in my 70s, and in order to do that, you got to be realistic with yourself. If you're, 100 pounds overweight and you're drinking and living an unhealthy lifestyle, my voice coach used to say to me, if you want to be a good singer, you have to be an athlete. Because you're unlike a guitar or drums or a trumpet, where, when the instrument breaks, you just go get a new one. In the case of a singer, your body is your instrument, so if you run it down, it just ain't going to work right.
That's amazing. And just before we wrap up, I just want to go back to the album "Walking the Razor's Edge." Of course, "Rock You," the big video. What did that album and what did that song mean to the band? Mean for you in terms of your career? Of just everything? Explain a little bit about that album.
Well, that's where our career took off, and that's become our signature song, "Rock You." Although the biggest song of the band's career was probably "Heavy Metal Love," which was on the No Rest of the Wicked album. On one hand, we owe our career to the song "Rock You." On the other hand, I think that when you have that happen, then everybody wants you forever after to have every song sound like "Rock You," which is not a good thing. So, it's a curse and a blessing at the same time, but, I'll take the blessing end of it. We still do it in the set, of course, and I don't know what else to say about that.
No, but it's interesting that you mentioned that because years ago I had interviewed Doug Feger, who was the lead singer of the Knack, And he described the song My Sharona as a golden albatross around his neck. He said, yes, it bought me this house, and yes, it's got me that car and that pool and all that wonderful stuff. But every time I walked into the studio after that song, people would say, that's not another My Sharona, try again. And it became so incredibly frustrating. Now, I guess Rock U sort of became that for you, right? You'd go into the studio and the producer would say, yeah, that's great, guys. Now let's try to work on the next Rock U kind of thing, right?
Well, not only that, but we didn't write the song. The song was written by Bob Halligan. I wrote the lyrics to the verse, but that was about my extent of the involvement in the song. So, sometimes I look back and, it's always in retrospect. Can't change the past, but one of my favorite albums was always No Rest for the Wicked. I thought that, if we would have continued on that course with that album, I think it might have taken a different route.
Yeah, and of course on that one you had Don't Get Mad, Get Even, that had Lisa Dalbello, who contributed to that, and of course, great Canadian artist. Brian, always a pleasure. And
nice to talk to you too, Mitch, and thank you for your support.
And there you have it, folks, my interview with Helix frontman Brian Vollmer. A double-double on the Canadian rock vocalist today. So thank you to Paul Laine. Thank you to Brian Vollmer. Head over to Twitter and check me out at Mitch Lafon. Facebook, it's one-on-one Mitch Lafon. There you have it, folks. Another show, another great moment. Cheers. Bye for now. Oh, my.